When I hear a person poking and prodding about another person's passion or profession, I often ponder, how do they presume to perch on such precarious position? Especially when they don't know much about what they're hearing. And that observation has brought me to this notion, and that is, I hate adult parties. I hate adult social sessions. Because even though we are in this date and time trying to cultivate conversation of compassion and lead our language with love, there is still a contingency of adults when they first get to know you and they open up their conversations innocently or insidiously, intentionally or unintentionally, knowingly or unknowingly, they seek out two pieces of information. What do? Where do you live? Often, once they receive these two pieces of information, they've deemed your worth. And then they decide if it's worth getting to know you. When I tell people that I'm a poet, they stop. When I restate I'm a professional poet and spoken word artist, they're still stopped. I have stopped steady streams of speech by stating that I am a poet. And I believe it's because people perceive that it's something to laugh at. People give me a reaction that makes me believe they think it's funny. I have had people say, poetry, you can't do that. I've had strangers stutter and stammer, poet? You can't do that. What can I do with poetry? Well, that's one of my biggest themes. And by now, you know that I believe I can go anywhere I want to and do anything I want to with it. I consider poetry the highest form of lyrical and literary expression. For you see, if you want to be an astrophysicist, you have to know the language of physics, the language of mathematics and astronomy. If you want to be a marine biologist, you have to learn the languages of the sea, biology, and the engineering of your equipment. In any way, shape, or form, facet, forgery, and fashion that one wants to move forward in a lifestyle, one must learn that language, but not so with poetry, because you see, poetry is, always has been, and always will be about everything and anything, person, place, or thing. And that's why I believe it's so powerful, because you can take it anywhere you want to go with it. So I took poetry abroad. And when I arrived in Calgary, I can tell you, I was always writing poetry, still writing poetry, but I was not clean, I was not sober, I was not well. But even though I arrived here in that state, I kept writing and I kept rolling. I was still growing, and I didn't just grow abroad, I grew broadly. And I left stages such as these, and I engaged in stages far more important in some ways, especially for those. I became involved in education. I made my way into the Calgary education systems, where I was given that license to teach poetry the way I wanted to bring poetry to students how I knew it. I often engage and entertain, making it easy to educate and enlighten. The 5E theory, it's mine. But I usually save my most intimate conversations about how I connect poetry in life for one-on-ones or in genuine exchanges of information. Now, when it comes to the education system of my day, it was actually a little bit traumatizing for kids like me. The ADD, ADHD kids, the hyper kids, the ones who didn't get a clear diagnosis, the ones that were always in the hall, separated from the herd. You see, teachers didn't check for traumas back then either. So nobody noticed when I was enduring mine and then discovered alcohol. That changes an 8-year-old. probably makes you a little hard to handle. Doesn't make you a classroom favorite. And the only true mission teachers ever had with me was trying to make me sit still. And when they succeeded, things went wrong. I wanted this poem to have the inspiration of my educational history, and it wasn't all bad. There was one. Professor Sherry Rowley. She was my one. She was my humanities professor at York University. And she was the only educator that I showed my early works of poetry to. I felt that I could trust her, and I needed some answers. I was having conflict. You see, I had been involved in classical music and piano since age 6. It was my first love. Now here I am, enamored with poetry. I felt like I was betraying her. When I received a response from Sherry Rowley, she told me, I don't care why you're here at university. I don't care. And up to this point, I don't care who you think all you are, but you're also a poet. And you have to do this. Now, when those words were spoken to me, I believed her, and then I believed in me. That's how I knew she was the one. And we should all have a one in our lives and want to be a one for someone, especially younger ones. One who will always be there or be there during that time when one needs you the most to say, I believe in you, you can do it, and you've got this. I find that when one feels believed in, one begins to believe in. Now, when it comes to my poetic mentoring, I didn't have any. I actually gained my mentoring from looking at my idols and icons, the superstars and the heroes in my poetry and in my rap worlds. Basically, I listened to everyone who could kick my ass. I carved out my own coaching. I made my own mentorship simply by indulging as deeply and as often as possible in my art forms. Now, I listen to hundreds of artists, and that equals thousands of tracks. And on every single one of them, if not the track in its entirety, there's an element. I wish I said that. I wish I wrote that. I wish I dropped that. This near obsessive, truly intentional, always listening up to my heroes, because they're so great. If I keep doing this listening, I might be good one day. Now, I wanted to write a poem that was an example of achievement through adversity. I wanted to write a poem where people could believe that I feel conviction is the catalyst. As soon as someone believes they can do something, I have observed they probably can and probably should. In this world, this adulting world, I do believe that people can do the things that grip them like a nightmare. Those are the important things. Those are the things that must be done. And no matter how difficult the task or how hard the work seems, success is within your grasp. I wanted to write a poem for people and let them know that they have power. Even if they feel that they're living in a powerless time, they have power, personal power. If you have power over you, you've got power over the universe. I wanted to write a poem that would allow people to believe in themselves as I believe in you. And sorry to sound like a PSA, but look where I stand in front of you.